And we are going live as more people are coming on.
Yeah.
It's great. And it should be live on YouTube about now. Okay, well, welcome to the joint meeting of the Maryland Heights and Creve Coeur Township Democratic Clubs. I want to thank everyone for attending. I also want to introduce I'm Harvey Ferdman, the president of the Maryland Heights Township Democratic Club, and I'd like to introduce Sydney Jackson, who is the president of the Creve Coeur Democratic Township Club. Cindy, if you want to say a few words or say you're on the screen.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our meeting this evening.
Excellent. And as tradition, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And with that, I'll say a few words about tonight's program. I have invited the local and statewide candidates that I could reach, which was most of them, and most of them have responded to the affirmative to say a few words for our club. If the candidates can keep their time to say a total of around 5 minutes, so you do an introduction, and if you want to take some questions and answers, that's great. And then at the very end, we'll open the floor up for additional questions and answers that maybe people hadn't thought of during this initial phase. Okay. So with that, if folks would mute yourselves, that'd be great, so that our speaker can have the floor. And we will start with our wonderful senatorial candidate, and congratulations to her, Trudy Bush Valentine. If you would like to take the floor.
Thank you so much, Harvey, and thank you so much, Sydney. It's great to be with the Maryland Heights and the Creve Coeur Democrats. And thanks to all of the Democrats that are there who are representing Missouri. It's great to be with you. And yes, I'm Trudy Bush Valentine, and I'm running for the United States Senate. And maybe I can just tell you a little bit about me. I grew up in a family that lived the American dream. I'm so grateful to my parents for so many reasons, but I'm most grateful that my parents taught us that to whom much is given, much is expected. And maybe because I was the middle of 7 kids, I knew from an early age that the meaning of life was really caring for and serving others. And that's what I've tried to do throughout my life. When I was 13, I became a candy striper at a local hospital. When I was 17, my little sister was critically injured in a car accident, and I sat at her bedside while she was on a respirator for 11 days. And what the nurses did for Christina profoundly affected me and my family. I saw nurses giving Christina such incredible, compassionate, and competent care, and they cared for our family. And I really saw how much it meant to have people like nurses there during a time of need. And because of that time, I became a nurse, and I worked with abused and neglected children. And America is now at a time of great need, and we need someone in Washington. We need to send a senator to Washington who cares about Missouri and people's lives, and who has compassion for what is going on in their lives. And that's exactly why I want to serve. The cost of basic necessities are too much for so many Americans, so many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I want to go to Washington and make basic necessities more affordable, and I want to strengthen our middle class family. And really can't believe that no Republican voted for the Inflation Reduction Act. And I'm just flabbergasted when so many people need that kind of help, when there's so many good things that will come from that act. And so many Americans are having trouble accessing affordable, and Missourians are having trouble accessing affordable and quality health care. And too many people are choosing between buying groceries and buying insulin. And our leaders in Washington had the ability to cap insulin at $35 a month for the 30 million people that are living with diabetes, and not one Republican.
I apologize, Trudy. I was trying to mute someone else. I accidentally muted you. If you could unmute. That's my bad.
Okay, did I get to healthcare? Sorry. Did you hear me saying something about healthcare? Okay. And then also, we really need to start focusing on the mental health crisis. We need to focus on the opioid epidemic, and we need to focus on the closure of hospitals all over rural Missouri. So many people in the rural areas cannot get the health care they need. And the third thing that I'm hearing a lot about, and I know everybody is, women deserve the health care they want to have. And that includes access to legal and safe abortion. And it's beyond belief to me that we are going back 50 years and taking away the freedom of women. We are at a crossroads in America, and we need a senator who will represent Missouri. And I will be your senator and nobody else's. We need a senator who is a leader that can bring compassion and common sense to Missouri and to our nation's capital. Thanks so much.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions for Trudy, you can unmute.
I like the questions more than, giving my whole spiel here.
But
don't
I've got one.
Me not to ask. Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much for being here, by the way. So I have some really dear friends and family who are transgender, and I know that a couple other folks on this call are also concerned about the attacks on those folks. And I'll be honest, I've been sort of disappointed with your answers on those issues. So I would love to have a chance to chat. I mean, it'd be great to hear you say a little bit more about your position on those folks and your experience with transgender people. And I would also love the chance to talk with you about it in maybe a less public setting, because I fully believe you care. You've made that really clear. And so I wonder if maybe there's just some things that those of us who might be closer to people affected by these issues could help you understand better. But given I'm sure you've heard some pushback on some answers that you've had already, could you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on transgender rights and any other rights that you want to kind of weigh in on that you haven't already?
I believe in equal rights for everybody, that's for sure. But I believe in the dignity of every human being, and I believe in a person being their authentic self. And that's how I will always stand. And that decision, any decisions that are made should be between a doctor and a person. And politics should stay out of that. No child should be threatened for who they are, ever.
That was much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions? I have a question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. So if it's not something that you have given thought to, then certainly you can say that and get back to us at another time. I have been involved in the cleanup of the Westlake landfill, and now I'm getting involved with the Coldwater Creek area, all the illegally dumped World War II nuclear bomb production waste that's happening all around St. Louis County, unfortunately, and some out in St. Charles as well. This is the oldest nuclear waste on the planet, and we have not been able to handle that responsibly. And I'm concerned. I certainly want to see our society move to electric vehicles and, curtail the use of fossil fuels and all that, but I'm concerned about where all that electricity is going to come from. And what I'm hearing is that one of the options is probably going to end up being nuclear power. So I don't know if you've had a chance to formulate an opinion on that, but certainly given the track record of the lack of cleanup here or the not so great way that the waste was handled in this area, it raises concerns about creating more nuclear waste.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you're asking me those questions. And absolutely, I don't think we can talk about nuclear power until we start figuring out what to do with uranium, the waste, and filling up these landfills. I know moms out in your area in Bridgeton or Westlake, did you say? I know moms are really concerned about that. They're concerned about the health of their children, the well-being of their children. Everyone should be concerned about a nuclear dump, and every one of those places should be totally cleaned out and should be 100% safe. And I don't think we're ready to do nuclear plants all over the place because of the spent uranium and the problems with that. We can even look a little bit now at the war that's going on with the possibilities of those nuclear plants being blown up. So there's a real concern about it. I think we need to go to sustainable energy because I do know climate change is a scientific fact, but for sure, those areas where they're putting nuclear waste have to be 100% safe and cleaned out. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing no questions, thank you very much, Trudy. We move on to our next candidate. And again, a wonderful candidate. This one's for Congressional District 2 for a seat that's currently held by Representative Ann Wagner. So I'd like to turn the floor over to Trish Gunby, who is also a current legislator.
Hi, everybody. Really happy to be here tonight. Trish Gunby, Democratic nominee. I get to say that now. Won my primary handily a couple of weeks ago with 85% of the vote. So we are laser focused on getting Ann out of office, but that has been my focus since I announced over a year ago. But we had to get through some of the primary business, and we did. And we have been out talking to voters. I'm going to focus more on kind of what we're hearing at the doors, since I've been doing a lot of that, and giving people a sense of hope and the realization that there truly is a path for Democrats to win here in the state of Missouri. I mean, I can just tell you in my caucus at the State House level, following all of my colleagues on social media, people are out practically every day of the week door knocking and talking to voters across the state. And that is how Democrats are going to reclaim this state. It literally is door by door, conversation by conversation. And so we've been doing that, as I've mentioned before, for over a year now. I was actually out in O'Fallon this past weekend. So first time we've door knocked out in that area. And we heard, and I'm talking to persuadable voters now. So sometimes they're Democrats, sometimes they're not. Many times they're independents or people who just won't tell you who they are. But what I will tell you is everybody was very pleasant. Everybody took my literature. I had Republicans and independents tell me they don't like Ann. And hearing that, I know that there is a path to beating her. She is vulnerable. She had 3 primary opponents in this primary who garnered about a third of the vote in the Republican primary. Clearly, she is vulnerable, and so we will be doing all that we can to elevate those vulnerabilities and her voting record. She most recently voted a whole handful of things. She voted against contraceptives, gas price gouging bill, capping insulin prices, active shooter alert system. I think if voters knew the litany of things that she has voted against, I think that they would be alarmed, and I just don't think that they would put her back in office. That being said, policy aside and her votes aside, she's not around. I mean, that's what everybody said. They can't point to anything that she's done. They don't recall ever seeing her. And again, we will be lifting that up. And so the way we do that is talking to people and phone banking. I will be having some town halls, and we will put those throughout the district. We're studying precinct data right now that's available at the election authorities and the websites. And so we are just finalizing what that looks like and inviting anyone and everyone to help us do all these things. Door knock, phone bank, and if you can't do that stuff, give us money. And we will pay people to do it, and we need money to go up against the media buys that she will have in the future. She's already running an ad. I don't know if people have seen it. She ran it during the evening news and during the Cardinals game. Very warm and fuzzy, rainbows and sunshine and people walking hand in hand, and her talking about her vote for bipartisan tax cuts. So there needs to be a really big asterisk there. And so my job is to communicate the asterisk. And so that's what we need help with. And we know that if every Democrat gets out to vote in this upcoming election, and we convert some independents and moderate Republicans, there is a path to beating her. And that is what I'm committed to doing. So that's what I'm asking everybody to help with. That's what I got. Oh, I've got some applause from Trudy. Woohoo! Thank you.
Are there any questions for Trish? Give you a moment to unmute if there's any questions. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody stay engaged. Everybody should feel uncomfortable. Everybody should know that we're pushing the envelope. That is what this is all about. 80 some odd days of getting down and dirty. And I don't mean being mean, but just telling it like it is, having those conversations so we can celebrate on November 9th. That's the plan.
It is a sprint, no doubt.
Yes.
Good time for folks to get involved, get in touch with any of these campaigns. So next, I'd like to talk about our county executive race. We have Ken. Sorry,
yeah, Ken Murdoch. Can everyone hear me?
Here we go. We have Ken Murdoch, who's going to speak on behalf of Sam Page's campaign.
All right. Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me speak in front of you tonight. I'm gonna read a little something that was written for tonight, and hopefully I can ask some questions later. The last 2 years have been marked by some major changes in St. Louis County, and the next 4 need to be marked by growth, resiliency, and safety. A flux of federal dollars in pandemic assistance has kept the county budget balanced, the trails maintained, the trash removed, playgrounds and bridges inspected, meals served to seniors and youth, and water and sewer lines repaired. It has met millions of dollars sent by county government to support the operations of dozens of municipalities. Almost none of the government infrastructure to receive and spend this much money quickly and fairly existed 2 years ago. Today, it does. The next 4 years will measure the success of projects we have begun. There have been millions of dollars in new investment in St. Louis County, creating thousands of new good paying jobs, supporting new training and apprenticeship programs, and emphasizing on racial equity, which to me means not only a level playing field now, but a conscious acknowledgement that the entire system has been unfair in the past. These, along with healthy municipalities and strong neighborhoods, are the building blocks of a county that reclaims its positions as the state's and the Midwest economic engine. The past couple of years would not have been bearable without your support. The next 4 years will be impossible without your support now. St. Louis County is at a crossroads. We read in the newspaper every day and hear on the county council every week and see at school board meetings every month that the forces of intolerance, of racism and ignorance, and of Trumpism are emboldened and outspoken. The rights of women, particularly of access to abortion, and members of the LGBTQIA community are under a determined attack. As Dr. Page is worried, and Dr. Page is worried about this direction. As a father, husband, he is deeply troubled by this direction. As county executive, he is resolved to stand in the way of this direction. After a decisive win in the August primary, Dr. Page is pushing forward for the November election. There has been a hard right shift in the county's Republican Party, as seen by the primary win of Catherine Piner in the county executive race. Dr. Page will face her in November. This is a person who the Post-Dispatch wrote referred to President Joe Biden as a tool of Satan. She thinks Democrats' social agenda has satanic origins. Just replace the letter B in Build Back Better with the number 6, and the mark of the devil appears. That's a quote from her. She thinks coronavirus vaccines are laced with microscopic computer chips so government can monitor humans. With those sentiments, which are sounded every week at St. Louis County Council meetings and in local school boards, Ms. Piner received a whopping 56% of her primary vote. The same county Republican gave Attorney General Eric Smith 59% of your primaries vote for the U.S. Senate. Unfortunately, county's voters will have a better choice than Piner and Smith in the Democratic for Sam Page for county election, with County Executive Sam Page and our Senate candidate Trudy Bush Valentines, the two people we want you to vote for. And I'm gonna put in there Trish Gumby, because she's just a good person that can do much better for this. So let's line up and let's vote up, and let's all get Democrats across the line. Thank you. And I'll answer any questions I can.
Thank you. While we're waiting for people to unmute to ask questions, I have a question.
Sure.
Is that the Captain America shield up there behind you?
Yes. It is the Captain America shield. I'm a big Marvel comic books fan. I actually believe every identity should have a superhero. So that's why Marvel comic books are expanding to Miss Marvel, and I'm seeing transgender superheroes, and I believe every identity should have someone they can aspire to.
Very cool. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ken for Sam Page's campaign?
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Hearing none. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ken, and best of luck.
All right.
I'm not sure if Jake Zimmerman made it on. Jake, are you on? I don't think so. Jake wasn't sure if he'd be able to make it or not. So we will move from county to Missouri State Senate. Tracy McCreary, who is currently representative McCurry, now running for State Senate. Tracy, if you would, the floor is yours.
Very good. Thank you, Harvey, and thank you, Sydney, for co-hosting this meeting. Hi, everybody. I'm Representative Tracy McCreary. I'm a super senior in the Missouri House right now, so I've served 9 years in the Missouri House of Representatives, and I'm very proud of that service because I think that the issues that we've dealt with over the last decade, as well as the relationships I've built in that building, are going to help me be a very effective senator for this region. As most of you know, I'm running for the open seat because our dear friend Jill Shoup is term limited. I'm running for Senator Jill Shoup's open state Senate seat in District 24. For many, many decades, that district has run east-west along Highway 40 from mid-St. Louis County out into the suburbs. Because the bipartisan redistricting commission could not come to a compromise or to an agreement on the maps, the Senate maps were drawn by the courts this time, and they took that district and kind of spun it. And so now the newly drawn Senate District 24 runs up and down Highway 270, basically. But the good news is, although it runs from the St. Charles County line all the way down to the Jefferson County line, it did get a little bit more Democratic. So then even what Senator Jill Shoup ran in, and then before that, my old boss, State Senator Joan Bray. So it's definitely a really, really good seat for Democrats. I was out in Maryland Heights tonight door knocking. That's why I look a little wilty. So we are working very, very hard on the doors. And one of the reasons I'm so glad I'm running is I think the voters in this region really want a senator who can cut through all of the partisan bickering and somebody that can get along with folks in both parties and in both chambers and just get some work done. And, I've worked in the Missouri state capitol now for 20 years, mainly as a staffer, but I have been an elected official for the last 9 years, and I have existing relationships with folks on both sides of the aisle, and I think that's really going to help me be an effective state senator for all of you, but also for folks that aren't on this call, and also, quite frankly, for people that are on the other political spectrum. So I truly believe that I have the ability to work with folks and get things done. And, one of the things I heard tonight that I've heard countless times since we've been door knocking is that people are just really, really frustrated with government. And I don't, they might mean county government, city government, all the way up to what's happening in DC. And the reason I'm running, and I'm so glad I'm in this race, is because I'm not going to give up. Like it's very easy to get down and depressed and think like, throw up your hands and just feel like you just want to be, check out and be exasperated. But I'm not going to give up on Missouri. I feel like now is the time for people like us to say, hey, we have the ability to make a difference and to stay positive and have the ability to affect positive change. So that's why I'm in this race. I will say I've been really inspired by the women of the Missouri State Senate the last couple of years. For the first time in the Missouri's history, there are a record number of women serving in the Missouri State Senate. There are 11 women right now. And the women, both Republicans and Democrats, have been able to come together and really cut through some of the BS and just say, we're tired of you guys fighting. We're tired of the fist fights that almost break out. And the women of the Missouri State Senate, both Democrats and Republicans, have been able to band together and work on things that are just good public policy and things that help make Missouri a better place to live and work and raise a family. And I'm really looking forward to being a part of that. So thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. And if people want to volunteer for your campaign?
I'll put all my information in the chat, but yeah, we're definitely looking for folks to help us. We have a chance. I've got some volunteers that really can't do door to door, so they make phone calls for me during the day. But I could definitely use help with phone calls, door knocking, that kind of thing. I will say, this is a sad state of affairs for democracy, but really this is the only competitive state Senate race in the state this cycle. So every 2 years, half of the Senate seats are open. So that means of the 34 state Senate seats, 17 are open this cycle. 16 of the 17 were pretty much decided on August 2nd. So it's like whatever happens in the primary is sort of who the constituents are going to be stuck with. This is truly the only competitive state Senate race in the state. So we have to really stay super focused on this, because this is one of those races where one of those seats where it does bounce back and forth between being held by Republicans and being held by Democrats. So could definitely use your help, and I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Thank you. And just for information, I know in the past the Republicans have had a supermajority from time to time. Were you to win, would they not have a supermajority?
No, they'll still have a majority, but the way the state Senate works is in the Senate, the balance, each senator has almost equal power in the state Senate. So each senator has the ability to talk for as long as she wants. Unlike, and some of my colleagues here will attest to this, it's a big challenge in the Missouri House to even get called on sometimes. We get PQ'd multiple times a week. And then if we do happen to get called on, we can only talk for 15 minutes if it's on perfection and 10 minutes if the bill's on third read. So on the Senate side, though, we have the ability to filibuster and talk, and that's what leads to compromise on legislation, both good pieces of legislation that we want to have an impact on, but also it allows people like me and like-minded folks to have the ability to make awful legislation less awful. And so it's a much different game in the Missouri State Senate.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions for Representative McCreary? If people
I do see a
unmute.
hand raised.
Yes. Tracy, this is Sandra Murdoch, St. Louis
Hi
County.
there. Mm-hmm.
Hi. How do you plan to reach across the aisle and talk some reasonability into some of our senators on the other side?
That's a really good question. And I almost wish I could open it up to some of my House colleagues who I've worked with the last several years, because I think LaDonna, Doug, other folks that have worked with me would say that's one of my superpowers, is I do have the ability to find things I have in common with people on the other side of the aisle. So I've had many, many bills get passed over the last 9 years, but none of them have my name on them. And that is because I have the ability to connect with people in the majority party and work with them on issues that we care about, things that we have in common, and get Republicans to sponsor bills for me. Now, I won't have to do that necessarily when I'm in the Senate. I think that the way the Senate is run is that Democratic state senators have the ability to get legislation passed, but it's all about relationship building, and it's all about thinking about bills from a different, and concepts from a different perspective. So for example, I see Diana Fine on this call. We had a bill many years ago that the NCJW worked with me and Shamed Dogan on, and it was a bill that had to do with long-acting reversible contraceptives. Now, I came at it because I'm pro-choice and I want people that need birth control to have access to everything that's available to them. But Representative Shamed Dogan, he looked at what I was trying to do as a way to reduce government waste. And so when he brought that bill forward, he had a whole different message to his caucus about why that bill should pass. And once Shamed took my bill and brought it forward, it passed in the very first year that Representative Dogan had it. So it was the same exact bill. I was talking about it as a way to increase access to contraception. When Representative Dogan was talking about it, he was talking about it as a way to reduce government waste. So same exact thing. So some of it is just we as Democrats have to think creatively and look at bills from the other side of things.
Is there any follow-up to that?
I just have a quick
Chris.
question. Hey, Tracy, I was wondering, I was looking at, it appears that you may have gained a couple of other senators in the conservative caucus. And it almost, you know, the sense of a third will be conservative caucus, a third Republicans, a third Democrats. I would just be interested in your insight into that. Do you think we're going to end up with a replay of this last session?
Well, I don't think we will. And there was some a press release that came out today from 5 members of the Conservative Caucus that claimed that they were disbanding the Conservative Caucus in the Missouri State Senate. So I'm still trying to read between the lines and see what that means. But, you know, whether they call themselves a Conservative Caucus or not, we have to accept the reality that there are folks in the Missouri State Senate that are going to be really much farther to the right of me, and then there's going to be folks that are kind of in that middle. But I think any of us, if we're on this call, we're sort of into politics. We realize that sometimes with folks that are so conservative and almost libertarian, there are times when the issues we care about where we're actually connected and have things in common. So I remember when I was in office many years ago, I had things in common with then Representative Rick Bratton, who is a very conservative state senator. So sometimes, you know, things kind of go so far around that they match up on the backside.
I think Sandra Murdoch had a follow-up question.
I already answered my question. She already answered my question.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. Tracy, what do you consider to be the most important things to address with the next session when you win?
Well, that's, you know, I could spend an entire hour on this, but, you know, one of the things that I think is really, really going to be important is public education and education for our kids, both K to 12, but also those that are interested in education after high school. We're going to have to really fight tooth and nail to make sure that things stay fair and equitable, and also that we make sure that we are respectful of local control as it relates to school boards, but also as it relates to local and county government as well. You know, Missouri is a big, very diverse state, and I am extremely uncomfortable thinking that the Missouri legislature is trying to put policies in place, a one-size-fits-all approach to education, to what books are in the libraries, to things like that. So I think we really are going to have to stay ultra focused on local control for school districts, for local governments. That's a big one. You know, I also think that, you know, we're in tough times right now. You know, thankfully gas prices have dropped down for all of us, for our constituents. So that's a big deal. But there are a lot of folks that are still really concerned about rising prices. And so I think as an elected official, and I hope my colleagues will agree, that we need to be doing things in state government that help working families, that help middle-class families. I'm tired of everything we do in Jefferson City seems to be focused on helping those with the ability to buy their bill, to get their bill moving, to get, you know, something prioritized. And we really just don't have any focus on real working families in Missouri. And I think we need to start having serious conversations every time a bill comes forward about how is this going to impact real families.
What about environmental issues?
That continues to be a big concern. You know, Representative Doug Clements has led the charge on a lot of pro-environmental policies. Unfortunately, in Jefferson City, we play a lot of defense. I sit on the House Agriculture Committee, where a lot of the things that could be most harmful to our environment come through. But yeah, we're going to have to continue to pay attention to things that are harmful, not just to Missouri's environment, but also contribute to the international impact of the climate crisis. So yeah, we have to really, that the environmental issues is one of those things where we have to always be on our guard, because you never know what committee these bills are coming through. They'll come through any committee. It's amazing how they creep through. But you know, the Missouri's a beautiful state, and so much of our tourism dollars come from people coming here to enjoy our beautiful state. And I would just hate to see us do things here in the state and as state elected officials that will harm the environment and make things less attractive, not just for Missourians, but for folks that are coming in from other states and other countries to enjoy our natural resources.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Representative McCreary? Okay, moving on, at some point, we're just jumping back to county, Prosecutor Wesley Bell will be joining us, but I'm not sure when. He said he'd be on late. So Wesley, if you're on, if you can send me a text message or something, a chat message, so I know you're here. We'll move on to the next candidate. I do want to mention Paula Brown was invited and unfortunately unable to attend. I think most of you know Paula, who's doing a great job for us in the Missouri House. Another candidate for Missouri House is Melissa Greenstein. Melissa, if you're...
Hi.
And Jake will loop back to you in a little while. Go ahead, Melissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate you all letting me come and chat with you a bit. If you haven't already met me, I'm Melissa Greenstein. I am the Democratic nominee for the 101st District. I like to say Democratic nominee, even though I was not challenged in the primary, but technically I'm the nominee. The 101st District took basically the old 100, which Helena Webb had run for a couple of times, kind of cut it in half, gave half of it to me in the 101st and half of it went to Colin Lovett in the 100. So my district is the Chesterfield Valley area, many of the neighborhoods south of that, and it goes towards you guys in the Maryland Heights section at the 141 Olive. And so that part of the district is what intersects here. This district is currently represented by Republican Bruce DeGroot. He was redistricted to the 110. Derek Grier, who is a current rep, was redistricted from the 100 to the 101 and then chose not to run. So my luck would have it that there is no incumbent. And this district has been, this district is the second fastest changing right now in the whole state from red to blue. So this is a very flippable district with the same kind of work that all of these fantastic candidates are talking about. I also look like gross because Alan and I were out canvassing for a couple of hours before this, and we shoved some dinner in our face and then hopped on. But I would say that in all of those conversations, you know, even tonight when Alan and I were out, we had a variety of different conversations, some with Republicans and people who are independent and saying things like, you know, I personally am not for abortion, but I also think that I shouldn't be able to say what you should be for. And I welcome that because I think it's really important for people to recognize what's important to them and also recognize that they don't necessarily have the right to tell everybody else what to do. Alan and I had some interesting conversations tonight with some people who were very concerned about CRT and trans and safety, and literally walked 2 doors down and someone said that he's so lucky to live in the safest neighborhood. So everybody's perception of their own reality is what's at play as we talk to them. And I think the teacher in me, because I was a former math teacher, recognizes that we have to meet people where they are and try to find ways to have those conversations with people. Alan and I had, like I said, an interesting conversation that he was able to have about trans kids. And then I came up and started to talk about education. And I don't know that we necessarily convinced him. Alan thinks that we might have convinced him more than I do, but it was important to be able to have the conversation. And I reiterate that to people all the time on the doors, how important it is that even if we don't agree, that we can have a conversation. And that's a starting point that I think a lot of people on the doors are also talking about. They are looking for people who want to hear them, want to listen to them, and can have a conversation with them and show that we are back to some sort of decency and normalcy that has been missing for a long time. Obviously, getting to run for state rep has taken on a new level of importance since the Supreme Court threw the Dobbs decision back down to us. And obviously that is important. That is incredibly important to me. I have 2 daughters, and this is a crucial time for women, people, everyone to have whatever healthcare they need. So that is crucial to me. So besides education and healthcare, the other big important thing for me is voting rights. And I feel that all of the things that have been happening and all these new laws and the constraints that are coming on August 28th are the exact opposite of what we want. I feel it's crucial that everybody be able to come out and vote. I think it's important that people know what they're voting for and do their research. But if we could get everybody to actually come out and do that, we would have the kinds of representation that we all want and so desperately need. So I think the voting rights piece is a huge piece that's a little bit of the ball game. So anyway, I appreciate you letting me chat for a little bit. I'll get my information up in the chat window as well. I will reiterate what Trish said. We need people to come out and volunteer. Thank you, Alan, again. We need people to phone bank. And like Trish says, because I do steal this from Trish, if you can't do those things, then just send money. We'll find someone else to do it. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions for Melissa? People a moment. Alan, that Melissa referenced, also helps me every month run the Zoom meetings. So once again, Alan is doing many things for us. Thank you, Alan.
I'm glad to.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no questions, thank you and best of luck. We will move on to Luke Barber, also running for House of Representatives. Luke, if you're there, the floor is yours.
I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Luke. I'm running in the House District 89, which is in sort of the West County, DePere Town and Country region. I am challenging the Republican pick for Speaker, Dean Plocher. And one of my big issues and sort of the big policy stuff that I lead is...
You just went on mute, Luke.
Is disability issues. Is disability issues. Is sort of those disability issues such as the IEP 504, ADA issues. Currently, I'm serving on the St. Louis County Commission on Disabilities, where we've been working on things like universal design and housing, which is the accessible housing stuff such as installation of grab bars, zero-step entry, to make homes accessible for those who use wheelchairs. We've also been working on some pretty substantial policy. In fact, Missouri 2 years ago, I believe, on the last day of session, doubled down on 14C, which is sub-minimum wage for those in sheltered workshops. Under Missouri law, they can be paid as low as $1.10 per hour. 14C was originally a Department of Labor loophole that allowed that pay to be so low at the federal level. Missouri, seeing that there was a giant push to sort of remove it, decided to double down, added state certification through the State Department of Higher Ed and Workforce Development. And so we're going to have to repeal that section. There's been a few good bills in terms of restraint and seclusion and some of the abuse and neglect changes sponsored by Republicans and signed by the governor recently, which I've actually had the privilege to testify on in Jeff City, and even spot some loopholes in some bills that were pretty critical loopholes, such as noticing that in a bill that they forgot APS in one of those, the adult protective services. They had child protective services only in the bill for K-12 abuse and neglect reporting of restraint and seclusion, which was amended because, as many people don't know, those with disabilities can actually be in high school up to age 22. And so Child Protective Services is only going to investigate a case up to 18. Adult Protective Services does the older stuff. And then there's also the elder abuse hotline, which a lot of disability abuse also gets through. And so we actually have a system of 3 sort of systems working together. We have a lot of stuff in place at our state that's just not run effectively. It's not run efficiently. We've got different departments and all these moving parts that are working together on things. We also have outdated computer infrastructure quite a bit. In fact, the Medicaid purge that we had a few years ago was done as a result of a computer glitch. The state uses Fortran computing, which is an outdated system of software that does not like to cross-reference on spreadsheets. And so when they tried to do their spreadsheet test, their if-then test with the spreadsheet of do people have other benefits such as food stamps or Social Security or things of that nature, it didn't cross-reference. And so people that were automatically eligible for Medicaid were kicked from the rolls. We've also seen Medicaid expansion voted just recently in last August. And then the state refusing to sort of fund that we ended up having to take them to court over it. And sort of those things that really limit access to healthcare for people. And so a lot of the issues of disability is sort of tied into sort of those issues. Last cycle when I ran, we lost by only 2,500 votes. It was 60-40. The district was heavily gerrymandered back in 2020. With the new lines, it's looking to be very much closer to a 50-50 district, probably somewhere in the ballpark of 55-45, which with work will probably push it over the edge. And the primary, we're only down 700 votes between Republican and Democrat.
That's excellent. So the Democrats turned out in your district.
There were 700 more Republicans to Dems.
Yeah, I know, but usually it's more than that. That's a hopeful sign. Are there any questions for Luke? Okay, hearing no questions, thank you. Best of luck. And we are going to move back to the county for a moment. Jake Zimmerman has joined us. Jake, if you're there, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Harvey. I hope everyone can hear me. I apologize. I'm in a foreign space on my phone here, but I trust everyone can hear me okay. So I'm Jake Zimmerman. I'm your St. Louis County assessor. I hold what is by far the sexiest and most glamorous position in all of regional politics. And I know that every single one of you is here this evening because you are passionate about the assessment of real and personal property and the classification and valuation of same. And that's why I was thinking that I might give you a 1-hour seminar on the relative pros and cons of the cost approach to valuation, if that's all right with everybody. But I see Harvey shaking his head like maybe we should keep it to a couple of minutes instead. So look, let me just say this. I'm looking at a Zoom full of passionate Democrats, right? And I'm also looking at a Zoom full of people. Many of you are old friends who were there to support me in my very first campaign for the legislature in Mid-County more years ago than I care to remember. And I think you know who I am and you know my values. You know how I feel about a woman's right to make her own reproductive choices. You know how I feel about LGBTQ equality. You know how I feel about healthcare for everyone, and so on and so on and so on, right? So understand that when I look you in the eye and I tell you that there is not a Democratic or a Republican way to do the job that I do, but there is a right way and there is a wrong way. There's a fair way and an unfair way. In my time in this gig, I have seen untold variations of the same story, which is somebody who thinks that because they can hire a better lawyer than you can, that they can get some sort of a suite or a special deal. I have seen property tax avoidance firms try every trick in the book. I've seen fake farmers planting winter wheat seeds in strip mall parking lots in Chesterfield and trying to claim that the strip mall with the PF Chang's was a farm so they could get a tax break. I have seen people fly their airplanes out of St. Louis County on December 28th and fly them back on January 3rd and say, hey, there was no airplane here on New Year's Day, so that means no airplane this year. I have seen people pretend to be charities when they are not. I can go on and on, right? But the point is that none of this stuff ought to have a partisan valence to it. It's just a matter of right and wrong. But unfortunately, if you look at St. Louis County government right now, you know all too well that there is a partisan valence. You know all too well that there is bitterness and recrimination and people yelling at each other and people allowing personal dispute to get in the way of making public policy. Now, I am not in a place to fix the rest of what ails St. Louis County government, but this is a place where I do get to put on my hat as a proud elected Democrat. And I speak from some experience here. Those of you who know me well know that I've been in my share of primary elections over the years, and I've won some and I've lost a couple. I know what it feels like to be on both sides of that. And so I want to talk to those of you for a moment who might have hard feelings about recent county council races or the recent primary for county executive. If I know anything at all about my fellow Democrats, I know that there's some people here who love Sam Page. There's some people here who hate his guts. There's some people here who love your county council member. And there's some people here who desperately wish they'd lost to their last primary opponent, right? And I just want to remind all of us, we are Democrats. What we stand for is a government that is caring, that is compassionate, that gives a damn about the people that we serve, and is here to be honest and ethical and show people that we are deserving of their trust. I have seen what county government looks like when we don't do that. I remember Steve Stenger, and so do you. And we don't have any Steve Stengers right now, thank God. So whatever side you were on the August battles, I'm asking you, and I would hope that if it means something coming from anyone, it might mean something coming from me. Let's put all that behind us, right? Because we got races to win. We've got a threat to American democracy, not just at a national level, but at the state and the local level. We've got to put behind us the bitterness and the nonsense in county politics. We've got to protect public health. We've got to focus on the people that we need to serve. We've got to elect Tracy McCreary to the state Senate in a highly targeted race that the Republicans will be pouring zillions of dollars into. And speaking of pouring zillions of dollars in, we've got to elect Trudy Bush Valentine to the United States Senate. We have a chance, but the Republicans want us disunited in St. Louis County, and we cannot have that. So look, do I want your vote against my crazy right-wing opponent? You're damn right I do. Do I think I will probably have your vote? And do I think I probably didn't need to show up to the Democratic Township group to explain to you that my opponent, who thinks that Sharia law is the most dangerous thing we face in America, maybe is not the partisan warrior you want in the assessor's office? You know what? I think I didn't need to convince you of that. But what I do need to convince some of you of is whatever hard feelings you may have from August or battles past, whatever disgust you may have felt when you saw the latest dumb news story about St. Louis County politics over the last couple of years, I'm asking everybody, take a deep breath. Remember that everybody in this story is a public servant. Everybody's trying to do the right thing. Let's unite behind our Democratic candidates, and let's make sure that we stand up for the values that we all share. Thanks so much, everybody. That is like a Zoom Zen koan. What is the sound of 20 muted hands clapping?
Wow. Thank you so much, Jake. Wow. Okay, let me get my composure back. That was very inspiring. Okay, are there any questions for County Assessor and Democrat Superman Jake Zimmerman?
We got to find ways to make the assessor's job sexier so we can have excuses to give you a mic more often. That was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need spokespeople who are like passionate and bring that out in others. Way to go, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
and we
everybody.
will move on to our next county sitting person, as well as running for re-election, our county prosecutor, Wesley Bell.
Good evening, and for the record, I had wrote my remarks down that I was going to talk about tonight, shared them with Jake, and he just stole my entire speech. Thanks a lot, Jake. No, but it is really good to be here, and I can't tell you how much I agree with everything that Jake just said. And you actually give me an opportunity to kind of throw my emphasis in a little bit different direction. But what I will say is it is time to rally around the Democrat. And we've played this false equivalency game, most notably in 2016. If you all remember, when somehow the most qualified person to ever run for president was somehow equivalent to Donald Trump. And if memory serves me correct, there are those who may know these numbers, have these numbers off closer at hand. But if memory serves me correct, Hillary lost by about 3 or 4 points, and the independents got about 5 points. And so, and you see where that's taken us. And so, let's just be clear in no uncertain terms that we can fight it out a little bit in the primary. I think we should, pull some punches, but we can fight it out in the primary. But once the Democrat is elected, it is of the utmost importance that we rally around that Democrat. And it's always even nicer when we have Democrats that we want to rally around. And so I second Jake's point that we need to rally around Tracy McCreary. We need to rally around Trudy Bush Valentine, and we need to get and up and down the ticket as well, just mentioning those two. But we have to make certain that we get the vote out, and that no more excuses, no more, well, they don't do every single thing that I like or what have you. It's time to get out the vote. We did this in 2016 and we lost 3 Supreme Court justices. And so, and that's not like that was a surprise. We knew that was coming. But yet there was still some of that talk that was allowed to fester on this side. And so, I'm kind of fired up myself. And so I was going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff in our office. And I'm really proud of what the men and women of our office have done. We talked about bringing diversion programs to low-level and nonviolent individuals. We've done that. We talked about tracking the data to make sure that it's successful. Well, we have a 92% success rate with our diversion programs, a bucket of 1,800 people that have now been able to avoid the jail and get help, and they're doing it successfully. We've reduced the jail population in St. Louis County now by 31%. And those are things that we talked about doing before and we've done. And I'm really proud of that. 130 people in our office, the largest prosecutor's office in the state. But also, I'm going to end where I started. We got to make sure we're rallying around Democrats. We got to make sure that we're getting out. We got to knock on doors. We have to lend our voices in every way that we can because it matters. It is too important. And Harvey, thanks for the invite. And if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer. But everything that I say is going to end in support the Democrats.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank you for your service. I know that's a very tough and critical position that you're in the county, and I know the work you've been doing, and it's been good. So thank you. Are there any questions for Wesley? If people a chance to unmute. I don't see if anyone's raising hands, but if you are, just unmute and speak up. Okay, with that, thank you. We move on to our next candidate, another sitting state representative, Mr. Doug Clements. Doug, if you're there.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Harvey?
There you are, yes.
So thank you, everyone. I appreciate the time you're taking out of your evening to spend listening to us politicians, but it's important. Following up on the last two conversations, I wish I had that kind of thunder to add, but I will tell you this, that I'm a seated elected official. I believe I do a pretty good job of representing the people, but it's a tough fight right now. And we need all sorts of support. So I actually did this at the beginning of the call. I'm going to do it right now. I am sitting in the St. Charles County Dems office. And the reason I'm doing that, the reason I'm the last of a couple in here is because I'm on this phone call, but because we are trying to grow the party and trying to flip seats in other places in Missouri. And where we can, where we know that we have a safe Democratic seat, we need to stop patting each other on the back, and we need to get to work for Tracy McCreary. We need to get to work for Trudy Bush Valentine. We need to get to work for Trish Gumby, and we need to get to work for this host of candidates right across the river in St. Charles. My new district is a 72nd still, so I get to keep the same number, but I don't have a Democratic challenger in the primary. So I'm the instant Democratic nominee, and I have no general election, which means my time, aside from meeting my new voters, needs to be spent on the doors getting somebody else elected. Because I got 49 people in the House of Representatives, 49. Now, by statistics, we should have 57. And by God, at the end of this session, I'm going to be breaking my heart to try and make that happen. So I really hope that everybody in St. Louis City and St. Louis County is paying attention to what needs to happen. And when we have a safe seat without a challenger like mine, it's time to mobilize someplace else. And I'm making this ask because whoever's won the primaries, that's our man or woman in the street, and we got to back them. We got to get them there. And that doesn't happen by saying, I wish. It happens by picking up the phone. It happens by knocking doors. It happens by writing checks. And I'm asking for all three, not for me, but for the people who can flip a seat. And I appreciate your time. I'll let myself open for questions. And if there aren't any, I'm going to have to sign off and go have dinner with my wife.
Well, we don't want to keep you from dinner with your lovely wife. Are there any questions?
Are there any of your colleagues in safe seats who we need to convince to do that too? And if so, you want to send me their names, you can just send me an email. Harvey's got my email if you need it.
I'd be happy to chat with you. But, you know, the House Democratic Campaign Committee is its own entity, separate of the Democratic Party. And we work very hard with our candidates. We do candidate recruitment, candidate training, and we get people set up and try to give them the support to win. Because this is a crazy business. It's not easy to just step into and be successful.
Yeah, I see Barbara has her mic unmuted. Did you want to ask a question, Barbara Harris?
Yeah, I have a more general question than that, and I'll just toss it out there. I don't see Miss Valentine here anymore, but Harvey or anyone who wants to answer, what effect do you think the candidacy of John Wood is going to have on the race?
I'll tell you what, let's save that for after our last candidate speaks, and then we can have like an open forum.
That's what I intended.
But that's an excellent question. So thank you, Representative Clements, Doug. I know you're doing a yeoman's job, and also you're working a lot to address not just environmental situations, but that situation with all the nuclear waste around St. Louis County that I mentioned earlier, and thank you for your efforts and support of the community on that. And our next candidate is another sitting State House of Representatives person, LaDonna Applebaum. LaDonna, the floor is yours. I think LaDonna's still on. Give her a chance to get
I
situated.
think she
and
may have
unmute
had to leave because she put her information in the chat.
Ah, okay. Very good. Very good. Are there any candidates that I have missed? There were a lot of folks that responded, and I just want to make sure if there's a candidate I missed, if you would unmute and say a few words, that would be a great time. Okay, with that, I will go back to Barbara Harris's question and ask if any of the candidates first wish to address that question. That would be the effect you think that John Wood's candidacy will have on the race. I know not everyone was able to stay for the full session. I don't think Trudy Valentine
I'm happy to
Bush
chat.
is still on.
Harvey,
Go right
I'm happy
ahead,
to chime
Wesley. Absolutely,
I
go
think-
for it.
And I appreciate that question because I was about to log off. Then I heard that question. I'm like, no, I'm staying on for this one. We already know what this candidacy can and will do because we've already seen it. It is very likely to pull away votes that could be ripe for the picking for a Democrat. And so I think that no matter what the messaging is, how much money they throw into the race, I think what we've seen is at more than probably any time in recent history, we have to vote for the Democrat. We just have to. You know, God bless Mr. Wood if he gets in, but who's he going to work with? And what's he going to do? Is he going to be the that 50th vote that swings back and forth on important legislation that needs to be passed that we can't get passed? Is he at some point the 59th or 60th vote that can prevent or that can continue the filibuster? You know, it's just too important. And so he may have the best intentions or what have you, but if that's the case, then run as a Democrat and support Democrats, and then we can talk. But right now, the stakes are too high. We know what it means, and we got to make sure that we're voting. We got to vote. We got to vote the party line.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to comment?
Yes, if you remember the last time John Ashcroft put someone in was Clarence Thomas. And so his choice of candidates are not positive as far as Democrats are concerned.
So, I mean, the question is, which side is he gonna pull from? And you're saying maybe the Democrats, but I don't know. And he has said that he'll caucus with Republicans, so that's bad news.
That's very bad news.
Well, in my opinion, he's still a regular. Oh, go ahead, Carla.
I'd like to know, based on the people who've been out, door knocking. I door knocked several years ago and a couple of times. What are the issues that are getting to people where they live? I mean, it was availability of health care and the Affordable Care Act last time I was on the doors. And I want to know, what are the issues that people feel that government can make a difference on right now?
Harvey, can I answer?
Yeah, sure. Jump in.
And obviously I have the least experience of anybody in here who's been trying to run for anything, but what I'm hearing on the doors a lot right now, obviously, is reproductive rights. And that is from men and women, Republicans and Democrats. It is, people are shocked at the overreach there, because even people who are not thrilled with the idea of what they call just, whatever abortion, they feel that there should be exceptions. So that's a big one. I would say guns is another big one that we're seeing. And obviously with Uvalde, and I think that is to be expected. There's always a certain amount of people, with kids and its education. And obviously there's also talk of some version of inflation, kitchen table economics, taxes, some monetary piece, which sometimes is locally based and sometimes is really much more of a federal or global concept. And then there's, I'm not kidding, at least 2 or 3 times every time I go out, it is democracy is falling off a cliff, and that's what they're concerned about.
Are you hearing that from both Democrat and Republicans, or can you kind of categorize which groups are more concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reproductive piece I'm getting from a lot of, I think that's across the board. The gun piece is probably more Democrats and left-leaning independents, but not always. The inflation economy, that piece is also sort of across the board. I think it just sort of depends on how they perceive what's happening at their kitchen table and what they think the cause of that is. And then democracy falling off a cliff is mostly Democrats, but there are some independents who are sick and tired of sort of the logjam that I'm sure all of these representatives can attest to in the House, and just that nothing gets done, and they feel like no one's talking to each other and no one's listening to each other. And I mean, I know the Democrats did everything they could to fight the good fight on all of the things, and they held back some really, really awful things. But I think in the long run, when you have a supermajority like we do, the only people who pay for that are Missourians, and it's because we can't get things done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Harvey.
Any other comments? Yes.
I want to jump back to the last question that we had about the John Wood question.
Sure.
Because I recently graduated from the University of Missouri St. Louis with the bachelor's in public policy. So Anita Mannion and David Kimball, who are 2 of the Kimball's the new department head. Anita Mannion's one of the political analysts that they have on the news all the time and stuff. We've talked about sort of the John Wood question from an interesting angle, that really the Republican primary shifted sort of that impact that it's going to have. We felt that the John Wood candidacy would have had more of an impact had it been a different Republican candidate than it is. Partly because John Wood and the Republican nominee on their issues, their platform, their policy is so similar. It's sort of scary how similar the policy, the platform, the issues, the viewpoints and ideologies are. That we don't think we're going to see as much of a splintering off of the Republican Party as originally anticipated. And so it's important to recognize too how closely similar they are. So we don't think it's going to have as much of an effect. We think it will still have a slight effect, but no more than what is common with sort of the Green or Libertarian parties in previous elections.
Thank you. I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here just for a minute. Depending upon what kind of campaign, and I don't know if Trudy is still on, or for that matter, I assume there's no one from John Wood's campaign listening, but if either of you are, my opinion is that Republicans don't like frivolous lawsuits, and they don't like wasted taxpayer money. And I think that their nominee for Senate can be accused of doing both of those in spades. He's done them a lot of frivolous lawsuits and a lot of wasted taxpayer money. And my understanding is that his office has therefore not been able to keep up with normal duties of that office. But that's a rumor. I can't substantiate that. But I would hope that would give traditional close your eyes, vote Republican voters a little bit of pause for voting for that guy. You're right. Policy-wise, John Woods looks virtually identical. All the more reason why they may vote for him. So we'll just see what kind of what kind of campaigns will run against him. It just depends. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Anyone else want to throw in a comment?
Go ahead, Nancy.
Have you actually found a platform for John Wood? Because I've looked, Alan's shaking his head. I've looked for like his website gives you what he stands for, what he's in favor of. Don't see any of that. I just hear what, Danforth says about, all of the bickering and the friction and what have you in government. But
John Woods is he's advertising himself as a traditional Republican with traditional Republican values.
Yeah, he did an interview with Jason Rosenbaum on Politically Speaking, where he kind of plays out a lot of his stuff. He's a Republican except for January 6th, basically. He's pretty much exactly everything else about them. He thinks that the Democrats are too far left because I would say because we care about people and we'll stand up for them. That's probably not how he would put it, but that's how it came across to me. But he doesn't like the January 6th stuff. He doesn't like the party of Trumpness. But he's okay with everything that led up to the party of Trump, except for Trump, is my not very generous summation of it.
It's also important to remember to sort of the political ideologies of Danforth and Ashcroft and some of the people that are sort of supporting him too, and sort of who his closest advisors are as well, because those people are the people that have him in their ear and are sort of telling him kind of what policies are kind of important and things. And so because of that, he sort of has that sort of shaped that policy platform that is so sort of more business-like, more Republican-like, because those are the people that are sort of in his corner.
He's pro-life with exceptions.
I just want to echo one thing. I think Wesley said it. I mean, this is just a situation where every Democrat that's registered to vote has to get out and vote. There can be no excuses. So on your own personal networks, don't wait for a campaign. As we said in my watch party speech, we are the Democrats. The cavalry is not coming. It's us, everybody on this Zoom. So you've got friends, you've got their phone numbers, you've got their emails. Text them, email them, tell them to get involved, tell them to vote, and then challenge them to do the same thing to 10 of their friends. This truly has to be a grassroots effort, because none of us on this call are ever going to raise enough money as our Republican counterparts, with perhaps the exception of our US senatorial candidate. Other than that, the vast majority of Democrats will never be able to compete. And so all that they are going to do is send ugly direct mail and run ugly TV ads over and over and over again. And what we have going for us is we're out doing the work door by door and having conversations in the hope that when they get that in the mail or they see that ad, it gives them pause and they might rethink who they vote for, or just create an awareness around that. And so what we have to do is we have to just make sure that our base is motivated to vote. And they've got to get out and show up. And with the new election law that has come out, absentee voting opens September 27th. And 2 weeks prior to the election, no excuse absentee voting opens with a photo ID. And I think you're seeing more and more people take advantage of that. And so it means you have to do things sooner. You have to get in front of people earlier. this last week of mailers and all this happening, heck, this last time with the flood, there were mailers stuck at the downtown post office. You cannot wait. The time is now. It is not the end of October. By October, it is too late. It's too late. By then, it's GOTV. So if you're going to do something, if you're going to volunteer, if you're going to give money, if you're going to do all those things, it is now. And that's what everybody needs to be saying out in their networks. And so that's what we're telling people to do. And I just want to see record voter turnout. I do not want to see Missouri lose population, lose a congressional seat in 10 years, and literally shrink away, because that is what is at stake.
Thank you. I see hands up. Melissa?
Yeah, I just want to add
And then
to
Luke?
I just want to add to what Trish is saying, because as somebody who is obviously at the lower end of the ballot, obviously anything that Trudy and Tracy and Trish, the TRs, do that helps bring out the vote, helps us down ballot, but also for those of us down ballot, we can help out up ballot too. I mean, this works in all the directions. And when I'm out on the doors or when I'm making calls and talking to people, if it turns out that the person I'm talking to is not in my district, then I talk up the person that is in their district. And I talk up Tracy McCreary as the state Senate candidate that we have to talk to. And God knows it's always Trish when it comes to Ann Wagner. So it is, everybody needs to be talking about everybody else. So it's not just this, okay, we're doing this one thing. We are in this together and we will sink or swim.
Very nice. Thank you. Luke, you had a comment?
Yeah, I do want to say though too, with the new voting law that's going into effect that Trish had specified, it is a state of Missouri photo ID. You have to have it issued from the DMV. It can either be a driver's license, a CDL license, a learner's permit, state issued, what they call the ID. The problem with the photo ID law is not everyone has the means to get to the DMV. Not everyone has the required documents to get one. The problem is those with disabilities and stuff probably don't know much because of some of the stuff, as well as public transportation for paratransit doesn't exist besides Colorado. And so this photo ID piece is a very critical piece for us to recognize as a way of voter disenfranchisement. Everything else besides the photo ID is very good, but the photo ID is what sinks that voting bill for our state. So much so that there's actually been a legal challenge filed in the Western Federal Court because many people don't know, but the Social Security Act is also in play here because under Social Security, the last 4 digits of your Social Security number is classified as an ID for voting. Our state does not follow that rule. Social Security checks are a default ID. Our state, again, not following that law. So we have these federal laws that our state is purposely undercutting in direct violation of the Supremacy Clause. The Supremacy Clause is a piece of our Constitution that says when there's discrepancies of law, federal law supersedes state and state supersedes local. And so we have this direct violation of state law trying to change our voting laws to be in direct violation of the federal voting rules.
Wow, thank you. That's interesting information. Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions in general that folks would like to ask of our candidates or just the group? Alan, I can't see everyone on the screen here. Do you see any questions, any hands raised?
I don't. I will add verbal. Oh, Betsy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just had put in the chat that I was unable to find any information about Josh Saxon, who is the candidate running in the general election in the 110. And there's like nothing. I'm just curious. I don't, the person's on the ballot and there's no one opposing him, and now he's running for the general. I don't know.
No, I just looked at the Morehouse Stems website, and trying to click to his whatever website he may have returns an error. I'd say if he's your representative, keep trying, and if he's not your representative, ignore that race because he's not getting out there, and find somebody who's doing the work.
Well, I live in the 110.
Okay, yeah. So if he's yours, keep trying. Right?
From Melissa's district.
Yeah. Let's see if his address is on his primary filing on the Secretary of State website, go knock on his door. Flip the script, right? There's too much at stake for us to sit back and wait. Like Trish said, there's too much at stake for us to sit back and wait for a campaign, especially those of us who are engaged enough to be on a call like this. Get out there, knock on his door, and buddy, you put your name down. What are you doing? And if you need help figuring it out, I will teach you. Go yell at him, Betsy. Tell him I sent you.
His opponent is the group, so somebody who's been in the So anyway, okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments?
I'll add verbally what I put in the chat space a little bit ago. As fired up as I am, and you all know that I get fired up about knocking on doors. I want to get people connected to campaigns as much as possible. Every candidate has said, we need your help. So if you are not already connected because you just weren't quite sure, we've put together a Google form. The link is in the chat, up a little bit now. We will also email it out to you tonight. Or maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure what's the timing on that, but we're going to get it to you. Fill it out, and I will make sure you get connected to the campaigns. It breaks down what kind of tasks do you want to do, what level of election do you really want to focus on. Pick a few if you want to, if you have the time. But I will make sure, if you want to work on your districts, or if you want to, like Representative Clemens said, look towards St. Charles or somewhere else. Again, like there are places we can plug you into, and I will make sure that happens, right? If I have to do it single-handedly, and I don't, because there are so many good folks here on this call. So I know I don't, but I would if I had to. It's that important.
Excellent. Thank you. With that, we're drawing to concluding our meeting. I do want to make sure that everyone knows if you have any suggestions for future meetings, topics, guest speakers, by all means forward them to either me or Sydney. Our email addresses and contact information are on the bottom of the meeting invitations that you all have been getting. And thank you very much. Thank you to all of our candidates for being willing to represent us and go through all of the scrutiny and tough work that goes around that. I hope all of our candidates win, and I hope you all make sure not just you vote, but that 10 of your friends vote. So, thank you, and good night.